You know who we are.
The most dangerous morning show.
Put some respect on it.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got some special guests on the line.
Yes, indeed.
We got the brother Michael K. Williams and Dana Rachlin. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hey,
Now,
Michael and Dana, I know we're here to talk Operation Crew Count, but I have to tell Michael how much I dig Lovecraft Country.
Let's get the business out first. Let's do Operation Crew Count first.
We can get the business out after. I got to spend a lot of time. I just want to tell him I really like Lovecraft Country.
Because he's into it. He's been waiting for this all morning long. Every day he comes here, talks about it. He watches the reruns.
You know why, though? Because I like seeing Black science fiction, because they always depict Black people in certain roles all the time. Like we always in some street shit or some drug dealing. I like seeing us in that science fiction realm.
Well, Charlamagne, man, that means a lot coming from you. I appreciate your intellect, and I know you don't mess around. So I mean, to have that come from you, brother, that means a lot, man. Thank you.
So for people that don't watch Lovecraft Country, tell us a quick little synopsis or breakdown of what it's about and what your character is.
Well, at the core of everything, real simple. Lovecraft Country is a family story. It's told through horror. When we meet the Freemans, they've already been through some things. They've survived the Tulsa massacre. They moved to the south side of Chicago, which is kind of like moving into a war zone within itself. And they're doing all of this during the Jim Crow era, right? And they're just like any other family trying to find their place in society. What is their legacy? You know, things come up, family issues come up. There's some forgiving to do. There's some discussions that need to happen. It's typical family stuff. And we're watching this American family go through their typical family era, like life, whatever, through all of these other things on the outside world. And that's pretty much in a nutshell what Lovecraft Country is.
Now, it's set in the 1950s, so it's set in the 1950s. And I know you and Charlamagne watched it. I haven't got into it yet. I've seen parts of it, but I've seen some of it that was true to life and dealt with racism. And then I've seen some wild octopuses.
It's horror science fiction.
And wild characters and all types of crazy-ish and all types of things like that. I got to watch it because I want to see how they can combine the two. And they say that those things that I'm talking about represents racism, and I gotta watch it for myself.
It represents whatever you think is ugly in society. And really quickly give you a background on where the narrative came from. So H.P. Lovecraft was, I think they call him America's first science fiction writer. He was extremely dark and, in my opinion, somewhat ignorant. He was very racist. He had a dog named, the N-word. The whole game.
Wow.
You had a dog named Nigga?
Yeah, he did. He had
Wow.
a dog named Nigga.
Wow.
But, thank God for art, though, right? He was able to take his ignorance and his darkness and turn it into a series of books. And the books are kind of like, to me, they read like the Twilight Zone, where he took the socially conscious and mixed it with the bizarre. And there was a book written on that world called Lovecraft Country, and that is the premise of what the world stands on.
Is that what drew you to that role? Because when you say it's a socially, he talks about social issues, but it's in the world of the bizarre. That within itself is bizarre. Racism is bizarre. Bigotry is bizarre. Sexism is bizarre. Homophobia is bizarre.
It's bizarre. Exactly. We've gotten we see it so much in our everyday life. We've gotten used to it. But the one thing, again, is this is a family story. The main thing that attracted me to the story was the father and son aspect that I get to explore and to unpack with my co-star, man, Jonathan Majors. Shout out to my little brother, man. He's such a force.
He's a beast.
And he's a beast. And for us to unpack what the father-son relationship is as grown men. We don't get to see a lot of that in narrative. You're right. It's not the typical. It's just not the typical relationship what you would see from a father-son who happened to be of color. The main arguments what Montrose and Atticus would have were over what was his reading content, what books to read. That's what they argued over. So that was the first thing that drew me to the project.
And this is my last question, Dana, before we get to Operation Crew Count. What's your relationship with HBO? How you always end up on a dope-ass HBO show?
Man, that ain't nothing but God. You know, and there's no, I don't have any secret weapons. There's no magic. I had to audition for this just like I had to audition for everything else. In fact, I was on my way to LA to test screen for Montrose, and when I landed, I don't know what happened, but they just decided to offer it to me, so I was grateful.
Now, now before you go, I heard you say that episode 9 was the hardest to shoot. Why was episode 9 the hardest to shoot?
I don't think we ain't get to that one yet.
No, it comes on this Sunday.
Oh,
it comes on this Sunday. It comes on Sunday. But you know, I'm not gonna spoiler alert it for you. But it took me. You know what I realized on Lovecraft is we sell trauma, right? That is what we as at least that's what I do in my career. I sell my hurt, my pain, my trauma, my bad choices. You know, what happens from those are all the underlining layers in the work that I do and the message and the narrative that I tell. And okay, I understood that. What Lovecraft made me realize is that I also have generational trauma. I have trauma from events and things that I was not there in the flesh, but they affect me. They affect how I feel, how I move, how I make my decisions to this very day. And Lovecraft reminded me of that. I have my aunts and my father's brothers and sisters were sharecroppers. You know, I don't have those stories at the dining room table because those are, as you know, as Black families, those are not things that we, you know, that's not table conversation. We try to forget and surpass and suppress our past, and we just deal with it. We power through. That's what Black people do. And Lovecraft woke all that up. It went deeper than just my personal issues in my life. I was granted the opportunity to spend time with the ancestors in a way that I'd never done before, and you're going to see that in episode 9.
Word.
Okay. Now let's talk about Operation.
And just before we move on that same note, I want to give a special shout out to my big brother Courtney B. Vance. This morning he went on Good Morning America. He talked about the importance of us as Black people and as families, talking about mental health. Word. And I left Lovecraft Country realizing that I needed a little therapy myself. You know, like all of this pain, all of these emotions that I conjure up for the sake of art, that don't go away just because the director yells cut or it's a wrap. That energy, that trauma, the residue is on me. You know, and I didn't realize that to the severity of that until Lovecraft Country. You know, so I want to give a shout out to my big brother for recognizing the need for us to acknowledge that we get to talk about mental health in our community too. And Lovecraft Country, it made me realize that, man.
Yeah, I've been going to therapy once a week for like the past 4 years, my brother. For the same exact reasons, to deal with that generational trauma. I started going because of my anxiety. And then, you know, as you in there, you start peeling back layers. You start realizing issues with your father that caused trauma, you know, PTSD, depression, all types of stuff. So, yeah, it's life-changing.
Thank you for that, bro. That's real talk. Thank you.
All right. Now, let's talk about Operation Crew Count. Now, what is Operation Crew Count? And tell them the real reason why you're here, because today's a special day.
All right, I'm going to let my partner, and I call her AKA the Pitbull in the skirt. Dana, you lead this one off.
Let's go, Dana.
Thank you, Michael. You know, just like as a segue in you guys talking about mental health. So last night we launched Crew Count in Brownsville, and we get a group of young people who live on what's called impacted blocks together, right? So Crew Count was born out of the NYPD Crew Cut initiative. So in 2003, the NYPD started their gang database. And since then, they've been nefariously adding names of young people, as you can imagine, all Black and brown in the most under-resourced and neglected neighborhoods across the city to this list. And you don't know if you're on it, you don't know how to get off of it. And I don't know, little uncomfortable to have mostly majority white men in badges decide whether or not you're gang affiliated and what that means, right? Mm-hmm. So we also know that under Mayor de Blasio, that list has been growing, on average over 300 names a month. So I started thinking about what does that mean, right? What does that mean for our young people? What does that mean for public safety? And the thing is that most people do not connect voting to public safety in the way that we should. So Mayor de Blasio ran on a police reform platform. That was his entire platform, was police reform. And he has literally given us nothing but more of the same. We can't even be mad at the NYPD because they're who they say that they are, right? They're doing what they say that they do. But we got hoodwinked as voters, right? We were told as voters that this was going to be different. And we started off again with Bill Bratton 7 years ago, who was the grandfather, the originator, the creator of CompStat, you know, which led to stop and frisk and the abuse of broken windows and all this. So I started thinking, how are we going to make sure that we don't have that same issue with the next mayor? And the thing is that we can't trust candidates. We can't trust you to come in and have the courage that you need to have to change a 100-plus-year-old institution. That's impossible. We can't have that kind of trust. And most New Yorkers do not understand public safety. They don't understand how that plays out in Howard houses in Brownsville. They don't know what that looks like. They don't know what that feels like. So we are creating a brand new voting block, which is comprised of the people most impacted by Operation Crew Cut, or the gang database. We're mobilizing people that live on these impacted blocks, so blocks that have over-policing, mass incarceration, all of that stuff. You know, they're still going through stop and frisk. We could say stop and frisk is over. I'll take you to most blocks in Brownsville, you know, and you'll see what's happening. I was getting text messages last night. And so we're working by mobilizing and activating the people that live on that block to get out the vote. So 2020 is our test run, get people really excited, but we're hoping that we know that will carry through to 2021 with the mayoral election and our city council elections, where we could say we are demanding actual police reform and accountability. And it's coming from people that are directly impacted by policing every single day and who understand public safety. For example, like when you guys were talking about mental health, the guys over in Howard houses who we launched with last night, they were saying, you know, we were preparing, putting out the tables, the DJ booth, everything, and they're talking about, look right here, and there's a blood stain on the floor. NYCHA has billions of dollars in funding. We have tons and tons of agencies that are in this city. Why are they not being activated when they are needed to take care of our communities? We have mental health agencies in the city. Why are they not being dispatched when there's a shooting in Howard houses to do trauma-centered work with those people? Why are we not having blood stains cleaned up off the floor? I live in Greenpoint. There's no way we'd leave blood stain on the floor for an 8-year-old to walk past every single day, right? So they have a garden in the middle of Howard houses. Nobody from Howard houses is employed at that garden, and the people that live there don't have access to that garden on a regular basis. So food apartheid is existing not just from their community to the next, but within Howard houses. So we need a new public safety model, and they're the answers. So activating them to get out the vote.
Dana, how do you think setting up voter registration stations on those blocks most affected by gun violence will positively impact that neighborhood?
Well, that's a great question, because we've gotten pushback around doing it because of safety concerns. Again, I don't believe that the people that say that understand public safety. So when we did it in Crown Heights, we did it on an impacted block with young people who live on that block. Year to date.
Shout out to Marcus Garvey.
No, that was St. Mark's. St. Mark's. Don't get us in trouble, Mike. So we were on St. Mark's, and that block year to date had 2 shootings, a bunch of shot fired jobs, a lot of noise complaints. And that night it was all love. right? We did what's called crime prevention through environmental design. We changed the block. We changed the vibes on the block. We changed the conversation on the block. And we know that when you engage people in the civic process, they're less likely to commit harmful acts. You're reducing harm, not just by reducing shootings, but then reducing incarceration and system involvement. So again, we need to think about, because we're not doing it at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. We're doing it at nighttime. We're doing it on the blocks that have issues with over-policing and gun violence, and showing that public safety can be achieved when we, meaning the block, builds the block.
How would the initiative create job opportunities for the youth in those areas?
So that's what we're raising money for right now. But in the meantime, we're still paying the people that we activate. Also, we're paying, so like on St. Mark's, we paid family members to do all the cooking and decorating. In Brownsville, we paid Brownsville hyper-local vendors. So every single dollar that we spend is being spent within the community. And then we're also paying the people that we're asking to activate their block. They go through a civic engagement orientation, civic education orientation. So they become like the teachers, the educators on the block. They man the voting booths. The Howard House's guys did competitions and all this other stuff for basketball and getting all the kids out. So we're paying people to participate, essentially. And remember, these are people that they don't even say to them, like, they don't call themselves civilians. And like, just wrapping your head around that, that's generational. That's what Mike was talking about, that generational stuff. So we are raising money. Mike and I raised $100,000 with our friend Lana Perea over in California to do summer youth employment, because again, we don't understand public safety. Mayor de Blasio cut summer youth employment programs, but added 400 cops to the communities that summer youth employment helps. So we weren't going to allow that. So we raised money. So we paid the kids all summer long and had them in really meaningful social justice programming. Now we have to raise. And they
all completed. It was 25 youth, right? 25 of our youth.
25, yeah.
And they all completed. We socially distanced them in Brownsville, right? I mean, in Brownsville, right?
East New York. East New York.
That police center was in East New York, the community center?
Yeah.
Okay, I really got to get my shit together. But
he was there. He was there. He just doesn't know where he was.
Yeah, but they completed it. You know, every one of them. They were coming up with ideas and different campaigns around the social distancing and how can they? What does that look like for them in this Corona era in their community? Like one idea was to why can't we put hand sanitizers in the buildings, in NYCHA buildings, like, you know, the stationary hand sanitizers, right? And so Dana had taken that to, these are one of the ideas that the youth came up with. Dana taking that to a meeting with the city leaders. What was the answer, Dana? Why did they say no?
Yo, you're gonna get me in trouble, Mike. But yeah, like they were saying, oh, we can't put it out like that because people will steal it.
Wow.
So like,
wow.
You know, our kids, not just our kids, because in Howard Houses, the folks are a little older out there. They have answers, you know, like, and they know what their communities need. And we refuse to listen because we like to uphold systems of oppression and white supremacy.
That's right.
And that's the bottom line. And so that's why it's important to creating a new voting bloc that says we now will have a say, because the mayor decides, the police commissioner, the school chancellor, all of those big positions with little to no oversight. Like, that's crazy.
Word.
That's crazy. When are we desegregating schools? When is that happening? When are we making sure the schools in Brownsville look like the schools in Greenpoint? Better yet, when we had COVID, the parks in Greenpoint were open and the parks in Brownsville were chain closed. We took an equity here.
Yeah, it's going to change when they can run all the black people out, when they gentrify the neighborhood and make everything too expensive for the natives of Brownsville to stay there. Then
Like
they
they
go,
did in all these other places, right?
And you said a mouthful right there, because don't sleep. Gentrification is upon Brownsville.
mm-hmm.
It's you know, you see it. It's like these weird, like, health. It's a weird you can see it's already, they're already scouting out Brownsville right now as we speak, and East New York.
And they, like, another thing, which is why we're going to start getting people on community boards, which is, you know, political appointments, but makes big decisions, is that NYCHA is now selling property to private developers. So what does that look like, right? Like, how, not only what does that look like in the essence of like right this second, what does that look like for the residents there? But then you're talking about generational wealth and property ownership in essentially non-Black hands again. You know, like we're not changing anything. And so we have to come at this differently. And the way that we do that is mobilizing people that are strategically left out and saying to candidates, if you want our vote, you need to pull up to the block, not at 12 o'clock in the afternoon with a news camera. You need to pull up to the block when we tell you and have a real conversation and learn about the things that are happening here and understand what we see as solutions.
Hey, Mike, I wonder, how have some of your like past roles on, like, let's say The Wire or When They See Us, how has that deepened your connection to want to change what's going on in these marginalized communities?
You know, the Wire, where The Wire changed me was it was actually the scene where Omar killed Stringer Bell. I struggled that day on the set. In fact, I was crying that day on set, and I remember my whole idea to deal with that day and with the uncomfortability that I was feeling was to avoid Idris. I just don't lock eyes with Id, it'll be okay, right? And of course he grabs me up, he corners me in the hair and makeup trailer and gives me the biggest hug and tells me, bro, it's all right, it's all right, bro. You know what I mean? I wondered, how come these two dark-skinned, like alpha kings from the same community, how come the only way that they can deal with their differences is one of them has got to go? Right. One of them has got to die, right? And I wondered then, am I keeping it real or am I perpetuating the problem? You know, am I part of the issue? Like, when do we get to change the narrative? So that started to plague me early on in my career. By the time I got to When They See Us, that blew the lid off the can for me. Shout out to my 5 brothers, man, the Exonerated 5. Shout out to the brothers and the work they're doing now in the community, with their platform. But it was the character of Bobby McCrae. After I had spoken to Mrs. McCrae, which, by the way, she gave me 2 hours of her time, and she was stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Wow. and just was smiling and just happy. She never spoke about. The only way she referred to Bobby was either as her husband or the father of her child. All she had was empathy and compassion for this man, like no anger, no hatred. And I was like, Dad, like you got to go back. You gotta dig deeper. On paper, he made some bad choices. He got going when the going got rough. That was wrong, right? He did that. However, after speaking to the mother, to Mrs. McCrae, I had to go deeper and find out the why. And that was one of the most painful places to go, me, myself as a dad, when I realized that this man, there's an old proverb, a proverb that says, if a man cannot protect and provide for his family, then what is left of a man, right? And this man was stripped of that. When he realized that his fear and his ignorance of how the system works was weaponized and used against him, for him to become the ceiling nail in his son's coffin, I believe that reality brought upon him such guilt and such shame that he actually felt that his family was better off without him. And He limped away. He limped away in pain. And I just, that's a low place to feel, man, to feel useless to your family as a man. That's a dark place. And that's where Bobby McCrae was reduced to. And then, I had to wake up and look at my life. That could have easily been the Central Park 6. Because unlike the 5 young boys, I was out there living a very reckless and at-risk lifestyle. And I could have easily been swept up in that shenanigans, like those other 5 young boys. And I became very grateful, and I became angry because, my moms didn't know any more about the system than their moms did. And I became angry at myself for not knowing enough. I went on this quest to say no more. How can we stop this? Because it's still going on. People are still rotting in jail, innocent for things they didn't do. People of color, so that when they see us was it for me. That was the last straw.
Michael, you said something interesting when you were talking about the Idris and
Himself.
when Stringer Bell Omar had to kill Stringer Bell, but it's like, hurt people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes,
when you a black man in America, you dealing with a lot of trauma and a lot of pain within you. So the only way we're gonna be able to change the narrative is if we truly change ourselves and we start dealing with our own traumas and our own hurts. Because until we do that, all we're gonna do is keep spreading that hurt to other people. So that's where the violence comes into play.
Can I share
Yes,
with you something that a young person had told me 2 days ago?
Mm-hmm.
And also a conversation that happened with the Crown Heights group, which was, we were talking, because in Brownsville especially, there's a lot of gun and gang violence,
Mm-hmm.
right? And through the roof. Howard Houses alone had 3 shootings very recently. And I was talking to these young people, and they were saying, how crazy, we're all killing each other over the things like redlining, food apartheid, health inequities, the trauma, the PTSD. Like, what if we all got together and the common enemy was state violence?
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
so we're out here having press conferences around how to stop gun violence. That's the answer. We have the answer. We don't need a study. We don't need a press conference. We don't need elected officials to tell us we're going to have a task force. The answer is that state violence, right? And state violence comes in the form of policing, over-policing, comes in the form of food, healthcare, all of it, mass incarceration. When you start to solve those problems, because it's very hard for a young person text me last night, he's like, it's hard for me to concentrate on what we're doing when I'm trying to survive.
That's right.
It's hard for young people or anybody to fix themselves when everything around them is crumbling.
That's right.
So the answer is we will match state violence with solutions. That does not mean changing Black people in Black communities. That means changing the state and the way the state operates in Black communities, right? To better themselves off the back of Black communities. So like the answer is there, and our young people are ready. Like, they don't want to be in a gang war. That's not it. That's not what they want to do. So how do we then facilitate that stops? And we have to be accountable. And when I say we, I mean power holders, people in the media, Michael telling these important stories, people with money and access. The onus for gun violence in New York City is on us. It's not on them.
Absolutely.
So how can people donate or contribute to Operation Crew Count?
Yeah, because today is the day. So explain how they can get involved.
So today is the last day in New York State to register to vote. So 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register to vote, which I highly recommend that you do so that you're ready to go for potentially for the mayoral election, depending on when your birthday is for 2021. If you have a felony, you can register to vote. If you are on probation, you could register to vote. And for parole, there are certain exceptions for you being able to register to vote. But you could register and then gain your voting rights when you're done with parole. So just fill out the application, register to vote. Today's the last day to do it. If you want to learn more about Crew Count, you should follow our Instagram account, which is Crew Count NYC. You could click the link in that bio or in Mike's bio, which is BKBMG on Instagram, to donate. We really would love. Again, we're going to be carrying this through the mayoral election in 2021 to make a better city for all of us. And last but not least, please text Crew Count to 31996, and you'll get important updates about voting. So like deadlines and things like that, because elections are not over in 2020. Like, we need to stay vigilant for city council and for our mayoral election that's coming up in 2021.
All right.
That's a big one. That's a big one, NYC. That's when they give a special shout out to my brother, public advocate, Jamani Williams. He's out there in the front lines doing the work that we support him. I want to give a shout out to all of the violence interrupters in throughout New York City, from Erica Ford in Queens with Life Camp, to Bevo, and that we rock with her. Bevo in Brooklyn, we rock with y'all. We see y'all and we support y'all, but we know y'all out there on the front lines doing the work in our community. So I just want to lift them up today.
Word. All right. Well, thank you guys for checking in, Dana,
Michael,
K.
thank
Williams,
you.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you for having us, bro.
And I'm gonna keep checking out Lovecraft Country, man. I love that show. My wife put me on that show the first week. Like, she know I'm into that horror, science fiction stuff. She was like, "Yo, you need to watch this," and we watched it, and we've been hooked ever since. Watching reruns, everything.
Yo, anytime, Shad, anytime, God, you need me back to talk about that, because there's lots to unpack there it'll lend itself to the community, and we can use it as a healing tool, man, to unpack stuff. The Emmett Till episode last week, man, I'm still, I'm healing. We all healing as a community. We got so much trauma, so much pain that we don't get a chance to heal. And Lovecraft just gives us a glimpse of the timeline of all the things that went wrong, that are systematically in place, that got us to the place we are now as a nation. So anytime you want to talk about that, it'd be an honor to come back and we unpack it together, bro.
We do that on the season finale. And last week was great, though, because I don't want to give too much away, but boy, when that thing came out the ground, and put it I was sitting back like, yes, why we don't got that in real life?
You know what I mean?
Word. When the season finale, though.
And what?
New York, baby, we do got it in real life. That's how we doing it.
Yes, and one more thing for both of you guys, if you ever want to come out and host or MC, like Fat Man Scoop, I was the MC for the Brownsville launch. We had Shawnee Culture from Hot 97 as the MC for the Crown Heights launch. We'd love to have you guys out. It lets the community know that they're not forgotten and that they're included. So,
hit us up, Dana.
Absolutely.
Hit us up.
Hey, yo,
hit us up.
And Angela, see, and me and Yee just found out we from the same hood. She know about Newkirk. Shout out to my East Flatbush. Big up, Vandavira. You know what I mean? We got it. So whenever you guys are ready, man, we'd love to get you on the community. I know you're busy, but brother,
we there.
We'll be there. We'll be there, definitely. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Dana, Michael K. Williams is the Breakfast Club.
Peace.
Good morning.